also people talk about, trying to get this deal over the line for Fury against Joshua. I mean, what were we talking about, 2-3 weeks? This fight here took 6 or 7 weeks to get done. It's not just like click your fingers, there's a contract, we'll sign it, everything's good. Ultimately, we have to do a job to make sure it's the right deal for Anthony Joshua. And those things take time. It's not just someone sets a deadline. He can set a deadline because then he can just go and fight somewhere else. That's his prerogative, it's what he wants to do. But it doesn't mean that the deal's going to get done just because you say it has to be done by X.
Obviously, the terms were accepted publicly by Joshua, by yourselves, by 258. So what was wrong with the deal in the end?
But obviously, when we say the terms, it was 3 items of the terms, and then you get a contract and it's 30, 40 pages. So as much as you agree 2-3 key points, and we did, the key points there were agreed. But ultimately, you then go back and forwards on a 40-page document, and of course, both sides are going to have their own opinions on it. So ultimately, I think, yes, we can agree those core points were agreed, but it's a lot more. It takes a lot more than just that.
So ultimately, you guys weren't happy with the contract. Is that why you couldn't sign?
I think there was still a lot of work to be done, and like I say, the time frames, not set by George Warren or anyone like that, but Tyson Fury's consistent public sort of bashing that he would do, that he always does. Ultimately, we're not just going to sing to what Tyson Fury wants us to do.
Last one on that, of course. Tyson is a fighter, he's emotional. Joshua is a fighter as well. He came out on Instagram Live and said he would sign the contract. Tyson had about 3 or 4 deadlines during that whole process. Those guys are emotional, they're fighters, they say things. Ultimately, Matchroom and George Warren were always talking. You guys had the power to make the fight. So in terms of a deadline from George Warren's side, was there one from him? Are you saying Queensberry had a deadline on you guys?
Yeah, I think Tyson Fury essentially gave them a deadline, to work towards. So I'm not saying it's George Warren's, but if he can't get a deal done within that time frame, it's kind of out of his hands, because then he has to answer to, just like we have to answer to Anthony Joshua. If Anthony Joshua said, right, you got a week to do this deal. On the other hand, when he was champion and we didn't make it, we'd have to go back and say, right, what do you want us to do? But we all ultimately just answer to the fighters because they're in charge.
What was the last point of conversation then? Where was it left at?
I think there were still points, but it was beyond the deadline ultimately. So it was beyond the deadline that Tyson had set. So ultimately at that point, there's no more conversations to be had.
But there wasn't a deadline from George Warren though, so...
Essentially from Tyson Fury there was, who George Warren he does work for, just like we work for Anthony Joshua. So he's the man, Tyson Fury's the man getting in the ring, just like Anthony Joshua is. So if they tell us what to do, then we do it.
You guys wouldn't want this fight for AJ, and what is the genuine hold-up?
Do you know what? I don't think anyone's ever going to get any clarity because no one agrees on what's happening. We've tried to keep a low profile on this, and all we see is Instagram, Tyson Fury saying this, deadline's up, he's fighting Manuel Charr. John Fury on last night saying AJ should have stepped aside a couple of months ago and avoided Usyk and had 2 easy fights. Yet in the other sentence, he's accusing AJ of not wanting to take the biggest fights. I mean, the fact is huge fights like this don't get made in 2 weeks. That's the reality. When 2 guys have huge commercial deals with different broadcasters, it takes time. And we worked away with George Warren, and it actually was going very, very well. Tyson Fury put us on the clock, on a 48-hour clock where the contract was nowhere near ready. He told us the fight was off. 2 days later, Queensberry popped up and said, oh, no, it's not. We've convinced him to give you... Then he gives us another day. These things take time. And you should look at AJ's resume to know that he's never ducked one fight. And I work for Anthony Joshua. So when he instructs me to make a fight and when he agrees terms, I don't pull out of those terms or, try and go the other way. And Bob Arum said, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, there's no chance in the world this fight gets made. And then yesterday come out and said, no, everything's agreed and it's just Eddie Hearn's fault. So I'm the easy one to blame. And even when there's a bad fight, I get the blame. And I've got used to it now. I don't mind. But I work for Anthony Joshua. He accepted the terms that were offered to him. In the meantime, don't forget, Anthony Joshua represents Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora received a contract last week for the Tyson Fury fight. And obviously AJ sees that and thinks, well, what's going on? So we've apparently missed 2 deadlines now that are the final deadlines. So I don't know. I've not spoke to Queensberry since Thursday of last week. As far as AJ is concerned, Fury's told AJ the fight's off and Derek Chisora has the contract. Happy to keep on talking, but I just don't see the solution because I think Tyson Fury wants to fight Manuel Charr or Derek Chisora.
I've heard. So from where you're sitting, it's off.
I mean, we were told that if he doesn't sign the contract by last Thursday, the fight was 100% off. And they knew, Queensberry knew, we knew, the fight was never getting signed by last Thursday. So we haven't heard from them then to say that it's not off. We just presume it's off. The door is open. But what we can't have, Ali, and AJ has had to accept the B side for this fight, the smaller split, but leading up and with the contract, he had absolutely no control over the deals and the revenues that were going into the show that ultimately was his financial split of the show. No decision making over that process. When he's got huge commercial deals that they could sign, that he could put him in breach of those deals. This is a deep conversation for the early morning listeners of Talk Sport, but just telling you the reality of the situation. So it's very difficult. And I see now the comments on Tyson. I used to get about 90% of the blame. Now I'm only getting 50% of the blame, which is nice. But I think people are looking at the videos from Tyson Fury. You've got to remember, they're two fighters. And when AJ's seeing the videos of Tyson Fury saying, sign it by today, otherwise the fight's off, your opportunity's off, you big dosser, or whatever, and AJ just goes, well, where are we up to? I said, we could be a week away from signing a contract. All right, okay. Let him go. And then it's off. And then 2 days later, we get another phone call. So there's a lot of games being played here. There's no games from our side. We just want to do it right. Mm-hmm. It's not an ideal time for AJ to fight Tyson Fury. But he accepted it, and he wants to do it. And December 3rd was not an ideal date, but he accepted it, and he's ready to do it. So at the moment, is it off? I mean, it was never on. But people in the history books of mega fights, this is the biggest fight of all time in boxing history. They don't get made in 2 weeks. Simple. Ben Eubank, once the first contract draft was sent, took 3 months to sign that contract. And that was moving at pace. I'm not saying this takes 3 months. But, it's a complicated situation with a multitude of global broadcasters, with a multitude of global endorsement deals, of things that have got to be done right. And when one guy's coming out saying, actually, I'm not fighting AJ now, I'm now fighting 2 men on the same night at the Millennium Stadium, how seriously can you take it?